from NHCSR here. I'm going to start sticking these field reports into the Serious Grower feed during the growing season to give you some real-time reports from our extension specialists in New England, New York, and the Mid-Atlantic states. Every once in a while, our friends from the north up in Canada. Everyone should benefit from the fascinating conversations that all of my expert friends enjoy having with each other. Find photos on our Instagram at Serious Grower and look for links to resources from extension educators in your region in the show notes. Do pay close attention to where some of these reports are coming from because we are covering a wide region. And please reach out if you need help connecting with your local extension specialist wherever you are. We will get you hooked up. Each of these field reports will start out with the most time-sensitive reports from what folks are seeing out on commercial vegetable farms. Then I will dive into a deeper dive, things that we are talking about. Okay, top line reports for May 27th, 2026. Even though we had some serious heat this week, we are still hearing reports of chill injuries showing up around the region in crops from cabbage to asparagus, some browning, some water-soaked damage, and it is possible we will hear about more signs of stress following rapid changes in temperature as well. For onions, leeks, and garlic crops, right now might be a good time to scout for thrips. Check out the show notes for more information on how to do that and how to use that data to make pest management decisions. From what I gather, allium leaf miter flights are likely over in those areas affected by this invasive fly. That's Maryland, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. For those areas that are affected by leek moth adults, it sounds like they're wrapping up their flight soon. That's the invasive moth that's found in northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Canada. We are hearing first reports of cucumber beetle moving into squash and cucumber crops everywhere from Maryland to Maine. Young plants are the most susceptible to cucumber beetle foliar feeding. So keeping those young plants protected for the first few true leaves is the most important part to avoid crop loss or reductions in yield down the line. Most folks are relying on physical exclusion with row covers or nets. That's very common. Sometimes you'll see people using surround or other kaolin clay materials that deter feeding by these beetles. Mature plants will typically compensate for some light feeding damage later on in the season, so this is probably only necessary for the first few weeks unless your populations are particularly high on your farm or in your garden. If you are attempting to hand pick striped cucumber beetles from plants, consider carrying out physical removal late in the day as they are most active and conspicuous on plants around dusk. Colorado potato beetle and three-lined potato beetle have been reported on potato in Maine. Again, potato crops are more susceptible to yield losses when plants are young, so keep that in mind. Beet leaf miner is in full swing in much of the region. Most folks rely on protecting their beets and their Swiss chard using physical exclusion to prevent infestations. That's keeping the adult flies off of these crops where they lay clusters of a handful of small white eggs. There's a very brief window where foliar applications of spinosad have been shown to be effective at controlling these larvae that hatch from these eggs before they mine into leaf tissue. So you can see that's a pretty narrow window. Spray coverage is particularly important here because eggs are typically found on the undersides of leaves. So adding an adjuvant or an oil is highly recommended there. If you've missed that window and you're already seeing some mining in leaves, an insecticide, some systemic activity would be necessary to avoid more injury. Consult your local extension resources if you need help selecting a crop protection material. This may be of lower concern, but there are often discussions around this time of year about garden springtails observed on young vegetable plants, crops like lettuce, beets, carrots. They're very broad spectrum. Severe damage is very rare because they are largely soil dwelling and largely feed on decaying organic matter. Every once in a blue moon, they will eat the leaves of crops. This is an understudied group, so we are really not sure what conditions make them turn rogue like this. For the most part, they can be ignored, especially if they're in very low numbers. But sometimes they can be mistaken for flea beetles because of their size and their jumpy behavior. You'll see them jumping around like a flea beetle, although they cannot fly as they have no wings. Check out a resource from MOFGA in the show notes. For a really deep dive, I would like to talk a little bit about epinasty. It is not just fun to say, but a very particular plant symptom that could indicate a very particular plant problem. So epinasty is defined as the downward turn of leaves resulting from the faster growth of the upper part of the petiole compared to the lower part of the petiole. There are a few things that could cause this phenomena, but in general, we're usually thinking about the plant's response to ethylene gas production and or high concentrations of the plant hormone auxin. These are both naturally produced plant compounds that play important roles in plant functioning, but excessive amounts can cause this epinasty symptom. Extreme situations cause much more severe curling, and you might see this following flooding conditions that can create anaerobic environments around roots that induce a stress response that results in this epinasty. Growing plants in enclosed environments like springtime tunnels that are often closed up where ethylene gas can be concentrated around plants can cause this response. Ethylene is also a common byproduct of incomplete combustion of several different fuel types, so we can sometimes see epinasty in greenhouses or tunnels with heaters that are not working efficiently. Plants will typically recover after short periods of these kinds of stressors, and we do notice that tomatoes are one of the most ethylene sensitive crops, and they're often used as an indicator plant to diagnose ethylene damage. But for minor, leaf turning, leaf curling, those plants will recover. They'll grow through brief windows of stress like this. Another source of excessive auxin that can cause plant damage is from herbicides. Many commonly used herbicides contain synthetic auxins that mimic natural plant hormones to disrupt the growth of broadleaf weeds. So these are not working on grasses, these are on broadleaf weeds. In high concentrations, they cause the target plants to grow rapidly, uncontrollably, often described as growing themselves to death. Signs of severe epinasty are just one indicator of a sublethal dose of herbicides like 2,4-D or dicamba. If it's severe enough, the plants may not recover. These symptoms may look a little bit like the damage caused by aphids, like curling, cupping. Other piercing, sucking insects can induce this, but you would see those insects. Those insects are pretty conspicuous. Misapplication, spray drift, vapor drift, contamination in your spray tank, your measuring container, your fertilizer, maybe some carryover in soil, mulch, hay. These are often to blame for these sublethal doses of herbicide that cause these weird symptoms. You would expect to see symptoms of herbicide injury to be visible on new growth stems, petioles, and then leaves within 48 hours of exposure, followed by chlorosis in the following 7 to 10 days, concluding with growth cessation if that exposure is bad enough after about 4 weeks. So there's many synthetic auxins that are used in many different herbicide products, and some synthetic auxins are more persistent in soil than others, but those herbicides will break down within 30 days or so, and they are very rarely present in well-composted materials. There are, however, some other herbicide families, some pyridine carboxylic acids that are more persistent. Those are the group 4 herbicides. Use of these herbicides on vegetables is pretty rare, although Stinger is an example of group 4 herbicide that is registered for use in vegetables. These herbicides are more commonly used in turf or other grass crops. According to the USDA, EPA, and the European Union evaluations, these herbicides are applied to hay fields, pastures, and forage. That stuff can be safely consumed by horses and livestock. Those herbicides pass through the animal's digestive tract and are excreted in urine and manure. That also means that they can remain active in the manure even after it is composted, so they are very persistent. So for those of you who are interested in acquiring manure or compost from a farmer down the street, they should know whether or not their hay was treated with these products because of laws and record keeping around restricted use pesticides, but they might not know if those products were used on hay that they purchased and brought in from elsewhere. So worth asking. These products are not registered for use by homeowners on lawns, so it's probably rare to find them on home grass clippings, but they're very commonly used on golf courses and other commercial turf fields. So home composters should avoid acquiring grass clippings from those commercial operations. All right, that is it for today. Please let me know what you would like to hear more about, and thank you so much for listening.